If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you fight for your limits, they're yours. Your brain is this incredible supercomputer, and your self-talk is the program it will run. So if you tell yourself, I'm not good at remembering people's names, you're probably not going to remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your computer not to. And that's not to say you have one negative thought and it ruins your life any more than eating one cupcake or donut will ruin your life. But if you ate that cupcake 20 times a day, every single day, there will definitely be consequences. Same thing with our thoughts and our beliefs.
Collective Insights is a voyage through topics and technologies revolutionizing human well-being. Groundbreaking approaches for a better world and a better life await you. Welcome to Collective Insights.
Hi, this is Dr. Greg Kelly, Qualia's Senior Director of Product Development. I appreciate your support of our podcast, Collective Insights, and I encourage you to try the formula that launched our company, Qualia Mind. Qualia Mind blends 27 research-backed ingredients for life-changing support to your focus, mental energy, and even long-term brain health. Our podcast is a great resource for many topics related to mental wellness, and supporting brain health through your diet is a great place to start. So try Qualia Mind at neurohacker.com with code MIND for an extra 15% off. That's Qualia Mind with code MIND, M-I-N-D, at neurohacker.com. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. This is Dr. Greg Kelly. I'm going to be today's host of the Collective Insights podcast. And with us today, we have Jim Kwik. Jim Kwik's the founder of Kwik Learning, host of the top-ranked Kwik Brain podcast, New York Times bestselling author, and an internationally acclaimed authority in the realm of brain optimization, memory improvement, and accelerated learning. With over 30 years of experience, Jim's dedicated his life to help people tap into their brain's full potential. Jim, welcome back to our show today.
It's good to be here, Dr. Kelly, my friend. We loved having you on our podcast. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you, everybody who's tuning in.
Yeah, well, Jim was originally on a few years ago, but hasn't been on, I don't think, since Limitless came out. And with the new expanded edition that just came out, was it November? We wanted to have him back on the show. And as Jim mentioned, he was gracious enough to have me on his podcast a couple of years back. I've had the pleasure of interacting with him and listening to him at a few of the biohacker conferences. And what a treat to get to share you today with our listeners.
Yeah, it's great. Always great. Whether it's on podcasts or sharing stage together, it's always a pleasure.
Well, good. Well, I just wanted to dive right in. We'll get to some of the new additions, but one of the things I wanted to do to start out was just introduce a bit of the Limitless model that you have to our audience and the 3Ms specifically. So maybe just introduce those concepts.
Yeah, we could turn this into a little masterclass. I encourage everyone to take notes if you can, if you're not working out or driving or kind of multitasking. So I created the Limitless model as a framework to help us to be able to progress. Limitless is not about being perfect. There's no such thing really, right? It's about progress. It's about advancing beyond what you're currently demonstrating or what you believe is possible. There's a quote in Limitless from a French philosopher that says, life is the letter C between the letters B and the letter D, where B stands for birth and D stands for death, life C, choice. And ultimately, things come down to our choices, right? Our lives are a reflection of all the choices we've made up to this point. I think most people would agree with that. And I believe these difficult times, they could diminish you. These difficult times, they could distract you, or these difficult times, they could develop you. We decide with our choices. So every day you have a chance because you can make new choices. And the 3 choices that we really can focus on that will move the lever for us reaching our goals, whether they're health and wellness goals or financial goals, career goals, relationship goals, your reading speed, your memory, any of those goals, is the 3Ms. So if everyone could visualize 3 intersecting circles, a Venn diagram where they overlap, imagine yourself in a box. Like if you feel like you're stuck, where you're not advancing, you're not progressing, an area of your life. So we can make this like kind of an active thought experiment. Like, where do you feel stuck where you're not making progress, right? That box by definition is 3-dimensional. And the three forces that contain that box are the same three forces that will get you out of that box, that will liberate you out of that box. And I use these three circles to represent that. As you mentioned, I tend to alliterate a lot to make it very memorable. It's the last one, the circle on the bottom. If you think about like Mickey Mouse ears, like in a face, the face would be the methods. And everybody always wants to get to the methodology. How do you read faster? How do you improve your memory? How do you invest your money? Whatever it happens to be. But I realize a lot of people know what to do. They know the methods, but they don't do what they know, because you have to address the first two circles. And the first one is your mindset. The mindset are the set of assumptions and attitudes you have about something. So what are your attitudes, assumptions about being fit or healthy or energized? What's your assumptions and attitudes about aging? What's your attitudes, assumptions about your brain? What's your attitudes, assumptions about yourself? Right? Three things you could put in that circle are things like what I believe is possible, because you could have a method to read faster, like the things we teach, or improve your focus, improve your memory, remember languages or names or facts or figures. But if your mindset is like, oh, I'm not that smart. People at events that you and I have seen each other at or spoken at stages together, people invariably pull me aside and say, I know you're a memory coach. I have a horrible memory. I'm getting too old. And I always say, stop. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you fight for your limits, they're yours. Your brain is this incredible supercomputer, and your self-talk is the program it will run. So if you tell yourself, I'm not good at remembering people's names, you're probably not going to remember the name of the next person you meet, because you program your computer not to. And that's not to say you have one negative thought and it ruins your life any more than eating one cupcake or donut will ruin your life. But if you ate that cupcake 20 times a day, every single day, there will definitely be consequences. Same thing with our thoughts and our beliefs. And so, yeah, I think what you believe is possible, what I believe I'm capable of, because you might think it's possible for somebody else to read 3 times faster, or walk into a room, meet 10 strangers and remember all their names, or memorize a speech or toast at a wedding that they need to memorize, but you might not believe it's possible for you. So what I believe is possible, what I believe I'm capable of, what I believe I deserve, if you're getting it really raw, if you have an underlying deep-seated belief that you don't deserve to make money, or you don't deserve to be smarter, you don't deserve to be loved, you don't deserve to be healthy or well, then it's going to keep you stuck in that box, no matter what methods you have. So if you self-sabotage and you take 1 step forward and 2 steps back, that's usually a mindset issue. Now, you could have limitless, like a mindset, and still be stuck in that box, because you need the second and final M. If the first one's mindset, the last are methods, is your motivation. You're not motivated to get yourself out of that box. And so motivation for me is a very simple formula that I feel like is very functional and very pragmatic. It's the letter P times E times S3. So if everyone just thinks about or writes down in their phone, the letter P times the letter E times S3, 3 S's. So let's say you want to motivate yourself. If people have seen photos of me with Elon or Oprah or whoever, people always invariably ask, how did you connect with these people? How did you bond? How did you deepen that relationship? And I'm telling you, we did it over books. Right? Anyone who's very successful, they know that they read to succeed. We've heard the phrase, leaders are readers, that if somebody has decades of experience, like you do, right? And you put it into a book, and somebody could sit down and read that book in a few days, they could download decades into days, and that's a huge advantage, right? But if someone's not motivated to do that, or we know movement is so very important for your brain, the primary reason we have a brain is to control our movement. I'm very sensitized to this because we have a 1-year-old who's just, it's so important for them to be able to crawl and be able to move, because that's how their brain develops. But if you're not exercising every single day, or you're not moving every single day, because we live a very sedentary lifestyle, right? They say sitting is the new smoking, or sitting behind screens all day. Taking a brain break, every hour or so, just to get that movement in, or some breathing, some hydration. But if we're not doing it, maybe we're not motivated. And so the P in the equation stands for purpose. And this is the emotional drive we have to complete something or to start something. And it has to be emotional, because it's been my experience, a lot of people cognitively know why they should exercise or why they should read or why they should supplement, right? But if they're not doing it, they need to feel the purpose. It has to go from your head to your heart to your hands, right? If you have a goal in your head, you visualize it, you have KPIs or whatever, you're not acting with your hands consistently, because that's the evidence you're motivated, you consistently implement, you act, you apply. Then I would say check in with the second H, which is your heart, right? The emotions. I remember in my neighborhood, I saw somebody who I haven't seen in ages, and I didn't recognize him, but I kind of recognized him. And it's really weird being a memory expert. But when I heard his voice, I instantly knew who he was, but he looked completely different. He looked younger. He had this glow. He was fit. And I was like, wow, because the backstory was this person was extremely overweight, extremely unhealthy, would do all the unhealthy things and took pride almost in smoking and doing all these things. And I was like, what happened? He was like, tell me all he was doing, supplementing and, eating a good brain diet and exercising and prioritizing his sleep. And I was like, wow, we've been telling you for years that you need to be doing this. He was like, yeah, but it didn't really register until he said he came back from a work trip, and his daughter was crying hysterically. And she had a nightmare that he died and wasn't there for, her and all this other stuff. And that he found purpose, right? He found, because we're not logical, but we're definitely biological. If you think about dopamine and oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, we're this neurochemical, we're this feeling soup, right? And so he found purpose. So I would say the number one thing for motivation, find purpose that you feel. Because without a reason, you won't get the result, because reasons reap results. But then you could have, yeah, please.
I was just going to say, I have a brother, we're Irish twins, so we were both born in the same year, me at the beginning, him at the end. So, we've grown up really close. And he, for whatever reason, became a smoker. I went a different route, so I never was. And multiple times he, gave at least half-hearted attempts to quit. And one day he did, and it was super effortless. And what was the P in that case? He told me he looked at his daughter. She was about 8 or 9, realized, oh, I want to be at her wedding and dance with her. The chances that I'll be able to do that if I quit smoking are just so much more than if I continue. And that was it. He's never smoked since.
Yeah. And how people could use this is, going back to mindset. Sometimes we know we should do something, but we don't do it because, we're not associated to have purpose, meaning that without, like, even if you want to remember people's names, if you don't have a reason to remember someone's name, so even something simple like you meet somebody and ask yourself, why do I want to remember this person's name? And you come up with a couple of reasons, like I want to show the person some respect, I want to get a referral, I want to close a deal, I want to practice these things I learned on this podcast. Then you probably won't get the result unless you come up with the reason that you could feel. So the feeling is so very important. But even if somebody has a limitless purpose and they have a lot of motivation there and drive, the second thing you need is E, which is energy. If somebody is exhausted, maybe they have a newborn child and you're not sleeping, you're not going to be very motivated to work out or to read. If you had a big processed meal and you're in a food coma, you're not going to be very motivated to study if you need to do that. And so, we talk a lot, there's a whole chapter dedicated to optimizing your brain energy, right? How to optimize your sleep, how to manage your stress, because that could deplete a lot of energy, put you in fight or flight, and chronic stress will shrink your brain, as we know. The supplements for mental energy, food for good energy, the energy vampires, like all these things that could be sapping energy. So you need to really focus on your energy, because the key there is you don't have energy. And people might be thinking that's the problem. I don't have energy, but you do it, right? A big part of becoming more limitless is taking the nouns in our life that we hypnotize ourselves with and turn them into verbs. So you don't have energy, you don't have focus, you don't even have memory, you do it, right? There's a process for focusing. There's a process for remembering something. There's a process even for generating more energy. So sometimes we hypnotize ourselves with the language that we use and say, I don't have creativity or motivation to do my work today. You don't have it. It's a verb. You could actually do it. And when you turn into a process, it gives you your agency back, right? It gives you your personal power back. So you have to have energy. And then finally, you could have limitless purpose and limitless energy and still not be motivated to do the thing you know you need to do, because maybe that outcome or that goal is too abstract. Maybe it's too big. Maybe it's too intimidating. And a confused mind, we know, doesn't do anything, right? And so S3, the final part, P times E times S3, stands for small, simple steps. And I'm a big advocate and proponent for, dreaming big, but acting small. Because I believe a little by little, a little could become a lot. And so maybe exercising an hour a day is too big of a jump for somebody who is very inactive, right? So maybe that's too big of a goal. Maybe a small, simple step is putting on your running shoes, right? On our podcast, we had a biological dentist on recently, and he was talking about things to do beyond brushing, because oral health, could affect your brain health. And, if you want to get your kids to floss, maybe that's too big of a jump, a habit for them to adopt or adapt. Maybe get them to floss one tooth, or getting your kids to clean, maybe cleaning their room is too big in their mind. Putting one sock in a hamper or one book on the bookshelf is a way of a small, simple step, right? So maybe reading, if I think it's important to reread 30 minutes a day. The reading is such a great exercise for your mind, right? It helps promote neuroplasticity, and, anything that's novelty and nutrition will help you grow your mental muscles. But maybe you're not doing it because maybe a small, simple step is opening up a book. Maybe that's a tiny step. Maybe reading one line in the book, because nobody's going to stop with one line, right? And inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard is just too hard. So I think if people feel like they need to motivate themselves or motivate somebody else, their family member or somebody on their team, or maybe a customer to buy your product or service, do they have purpose? Do they have energy? Do they have a small, clear, simple step to keep momentum going on? And so the Limitless model really focuses on mindset, motivation, and methods. And you also notice that there's some crossover, like if the three circles are overlapping, then somebody could have mindset and motivation. And I created 3 I's. That would be inspiration. So where mindset and motivation cross over, they have the mindset, they believe it's possible, they have some motivation, so they're inspired, right? But they're lacking the methods. So they're inspired, but they still don't know what to do, right? They don't have the instruction. If you see the mindset and methods cross over, they have a limitless mindset. They believe it's possible and they're capable and they deserve it, and they have the methods. That stays ideation, because it just stays an idea in their mind because they lack the motivation, right? And a lot of people come up with a lot of ideas, but they're not acting on it. And finally, where motivation and methods cross over, you have the third I, which is they're motivated and they know what to do. So the third I is they implement, right? But they lack the mindset, so they could still be stuck in that box, because they're only going to be able to achieve what they believe is possible, or what they believe they're capable of, or what they believe they deserve. In the middle, though, you have all 3 M's and 3 I's collide into a shared space. And that's the fourth I, which is really integration. It's the fourth I, another word for it is your identity. It's just who you are. So when I'm coaching my clients, I'm listening for what's the barrier that's keeping them from progressing from here to where they want to go. And is it mindset, their belief? Is it their motivation? Or maybe they're using old methodologies for being healthy or losing weight, or maybe they're using old methods for reading, right? We teach people how to read 3 times faster with better comprehension, but the methods they're using are the same methods they learned when they were 6 or 7 years old, and they haven't upgraded those skills. So my message for people to put a bow on this is, most people downgrade their dreams to meet the current situation, when maybe you shouldn't downgrade your dreams to meet the current situation. Maybe you should upgrade your mindset, your motivation, and the methods to be able to meet those bold, audacious goals and dreams. And as people call it, their destiny. But the Limitless model is the opening framework for the book. And then we go into how to optimize your mindset, change your limiting thoughts and beliefs, how to, really generate purpose and passion and energy, and, change your habits, get into flow states. And then the methodologies are chapters on the methodologies we teach on accelerated learning to focus, to read faster, to improve their memory, to be able to be a good critical thinker and problem solver, and so much more. So yeah, it's a framework that people could use when they ever feel stuck. They could analyze and introspect a little bit and see where the bottleneck is, so they could help to be able to unlimit themselves.
When I was working more directly with clients, when I was in practicing naturopathic doctor, I always had what I would have described as a mind-body bias towards people's health. Not that that could be the only reason, but it's often a big hurdle. And I just can't tell you how many times a limiting belief was one of the major obstacles for people, making an impactful change in their life. And I remember this was in naturopathic school. We were taking a class on psychology, for lack of a better way to describe it. And it was an optional class, so not all of my classmates at the time took it. And what the instructor did is had us each week watch videos of these famous psychologists doing a consultation with a client. And, so these are impeccably trained, world famous people. And the one that's always stuck out in my mind was there was this single mom, I want to say 30-ish. And the crux of her problem at the time was that she wanted to be a great single mom and she wanted to succeed professionally. And she reiterated many times in this video that it wasn't possible to do both at the same time. And at the time, I remember thinking like, wow, that's a crazy limiting belief. I know it's probably super challenging for both of those to happen, but I have had friends at the time that were very successful, professional, single moms and great moms at the same time. And it just struck me that the entire interaction with her and this therapist never challenged that, that mindset, right? And so for her to get the results without that piece of your model, I just at the time even thought, well, that's going to be a long road to try to get to. So I love your model. For our listeners, please re-listen to it and adapt it. It's just such a useful framework.
Yeah. I think it's really key. In life, you have to control the controllables, right? In any situation, you could always control, your mindset, your motivation, your methods, your head, your heart, your hands, and your wit, your will, your way, however you be able to slice it up. But I feel like it empowers people to be able to affect change. And we've talked about this in the previous, when we had this conversation. You could be a thermostat, not a thermometer, where a thermometer just reacts to the environment. And sometimes as human beings, we react to the news, we react to politics, we react to how people treat us. But ultimately, the people who are making the progress and certainly, have higher levels of satisfaction, fulfillment, are people who identify more with the thermostat, where they don't feel like they're reacting. A thermostat doesn't react. It gauges, it knows the temperature, right? So you know what's going on, but then it sets a temperature, or as human beings, we set standards, we set goals, a target, and then the environment reacts to you. And so again, coming back to personal responsibility, it's just remembering that you are responsible for your life. It's not that the stories that, didn't affect our circumstances and how we progressed, but today we could come from a place where I have the ability to respond to be able to act accordingly, towards our own life. And that a reminder that we're also the pilot of our lives. We don't have to be the passengers, right? We're the pilot of our minds. We don't have to be the passengers.
When I think we're all storytellers, and I had this conversation yesterday with a dear friend, and sometimes our stories are useful and sometimes we've outgrown them. So one of my stories, I know one of the things you share in the book are stories of some of the obstacles you had to overcome. But one of my stories when I was young, and I think it was from growing up in a Irish family, fairly heavy drinking dad, lots of siblings. But it was the Simon and Garfunkel song, "I'm a rock, I'm an island, I touch no one touches me." If you'd asked young Greg to, encapsulate his story, I would have told you that, right? So I loved reading. I could carve out my own little space among the chaos, so to speak. And that was maybe a useful story for young Greg. It's not such a great story for this version of him, right? So no matter what stories we've told ourselves in the past, we can choose better ones. And so much of your work is helping people get there and giving them, the framework to do that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most important things is we, at any given time, we control what we can control in a situation, and we do the best we can with what we have. And I find, it'll be enough, right? That there's a version of yourself that you haven't met yet. There's a version of your bank account, your business. There's a version of your body, of your brain, and the goal is we show up every single day, until we're introduced. And, so yeah, I think I've always gravitated towards the hero's journey. We open the book with, Joseph Campbell's framework for hero's journey. And I feel like we all have a version of ourselves that, superheroes give you hope, right? Or they offer real help. And, if you're willing to learn and put in the work, that you can imagine it and see it and believe it and then work daily for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the new additions to the book, basically the types. So I think of one when I think of our brain, and this was in the original Limitless, there's really almost probably no absolute neurotypical. All of our brains have different types of skills. Some we're better at naturally, some we can improve. But one of the frameworks for the new book is a chapter on types of brains. And I tested out as an agile cheetah. Yes, and I was wondering if you could share a little bit with our audience why your team developed that and a bit about that chapter.
Yeah. Well, I'm really big on frameworks because I feel like a framework is a lens you could see the world in, and it gives you more distinctions. And when you have more distinctions, you have more power to influence yourself and our world, right? You change your brain, you could change your life. You change your brain, you could change your world. I realized that and you would know this, that just like there's personalized medicine based on some kind of assessment, like maybe a genetic or a DNA test, and there's personalized maybe nutrition based on some kind of nutrient profile or microbiome test. And I realized that not everything's for everybody. Same thing with learning, that everybody learns a little bit differently. So we created an assessment for personalized learning that you could use also for leadership, that you use for productivity, your own performance. You could use it to sell, negotiate, parent, hire, train based on brain types. So just like we all have a dominant hand, it doesn't mean we don't use our other hand. We're more effective when we lean into the traits and the strengths that we have. And I realized that when I coach people, when I give them a technique, so it works for some of them and maybe not as well for others because everybody has a different dominant brain type. And again, this is a framework, and a framework means that the menu is not the meal, right? The map is not the territory. It's just a guide. And we found that there are about 4 dominant brain types, 4 buckets that when I'm coaching people that we're looking to identify and then create personalized learning and performance tools for that specific strength. So I pulled from like personality types like Myers-Briggs to create this. I pulled left brain, right brain dominance, learning styles. Some people, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, multiple intelligence, they're introvert, extrovert. And it's just a simple 4-minute assessment that's in the book. People could also take it at mybrainanimal.com. And it's nothing to buy. It just gives you, based on your brain type, a multiple choice, very simple, strategies on how to really expand and be able to grow. So there's an acronym, of course, code, your brain code. So the C are the cheetahs. And the cheetahs are very direct. They're action oriented. They can benefit immensely from structured, time-bound challenges. They give them a target and they'll sprint towards it. Right? They adapt very quickly. They have strong intuition. Owls are the O in code. And these are where cheetah's dominant trait is action, like yourself. You produce, you learn so that you can implement. Unlike some people who just learn and they just consume information, but nothing changes. Owls, their dominant trait is logic. They're very analytical, methodical, and you could be both, right? But it's just usually one is more dominant than the other. They love the space to dissect, to ponder, to analyze. These are individuals who benefit from deep study sessions or work sessions. Dolphins are the D in code, and the dolphins are, their dominant trait is their creativity. So these are your visionary thinkers. They're all about the future, innovation, possibilities. They're often entrepreneurs, they're creatives, they're dreamers. They can maybe see a future where other people can't yet see it, like a Walt Disney, right? Maybe other people couldn't see what his vision was. And finally, the E are your elephants in code. And elephants, their dominant trait is empathy. So they have very high levels of compassion. They're very collaborative. They're the glue that often holds teams together. When they leverage their strengths, they encourage team interaction, open communication, feedback loops. So the idea here is when you take the assessment, either in the book or mybrainanimal.com, we give you strategies on how to leverage those traits to be able to focus, to be able to read, to be able to remember people's names. And so like a dolphin is very creative. They visualize. So maybe picturing a person's name, like someone's name is Mark, maybe a check mark on their forehead, right? Something simple like that or silly like that. So if somebody's reading, a dolphin would naturally visualize what they're reading because a picture is worth 1,000 words. A cheetah wants to sprint through and get through a certain amount of information and scan, where an owl will really try to dissect it, compare it with what they already know, and, really study and research these different things. But it also can also affect your influence and persuasion, your communication styles. Like cheetahs tend to be more direct to the point because they don't want to waste maybe a lot of time. Right? You don't want to beat around the bush. Sometimes when you're in that cheetah kind of mode, an owl, as they connect and communicate, would prefer, the details, and they also want to receive the details. They often communicate in very logical sequences. They present facts and figures and data. And even if you want to influence or sell to these individuals, it's kind of like their love language, right? A love language, the 5 different love languages, people tend to express love the way they want to receive love, right? And that's the best way to be able to make people feel seen and heard, and feel those emotions. A dolphin is, if they were to speak in communication style, would speak very big picture, future plans, innovative ideas. They'd be very passionate, enthusiastic, where an elephant would be looking to communicate, to understand and really validate other people's point of view, their perspectives, make people feel seen. They'll use words that are more inclusive. Instead of like I and me, they'll use words more around like we and us, emphasizing group unity. So it's interesting. Like even if you want to be able to communicate or even sell, right? If you are selling to a cheetah, for example, that's why it's useful to see what people around you and share the assessment with them, and right now it's free and it's complimentary. People could do it. If you're selling to a cheetah, they really appreciate directness, value efficiency, skipping maybe the small talk, presenting the key benefits, demonstrating how your product or service can give them, the results they're looking for. Where if you're selling to an owl, they respect evidence, right? They appreciate well-researched presentations, statistics, maybe some case studies. If you're selling to a dolphin, these would be individuals that you would want to speak to their personal vision, show them how your offering fits into a larger picture of their life and how it could pave a way to future, dreams or innovations. And then finally, if you want to sell and influence an elephant, yes, it's nice to have the statistics and the quick actions, but really it's the relationship that's most important to an elephant, right? They want to feel seen. They want to trust you. You want to spend time understanding their needs and demonstrate you genuinely care about their success. Make sure you support them post, sale. So I feel like that once you know your brain type, it opens up a world of possibility and transformation for yourself, certainly. And it takes the judgment away that you have for yourself, because this is like your dominant traits, and it can change over time, just like, certain things, because you could train, if you're a cheetah, people could train to be more logical and more well-researched and study. You could certainly increase your EQ, your emotional quotient, through various means that we teach. If you want to be more like let's say an elephant. Like, it's interesting, Greg, we had like our whole team take this assessment, and 100% of our customer support team, they're all elephants. And it's interesting because these are people who have high levels of empathy. They're our community builders. They want our students to feel seen, to feel heard. They're very collaborative. And so they run our book club that we have. Every month we read a new book together. I teach them how to memorize it. We bring the author in, so they're really great. Our CFO, our financial officer, is an owl. And that's probably what you want. You want somebody who really understands numbers and data. And my business partner, our CEO, she's a dolphin, right? She has this vision for where, our mission to build a better, brighter world, one brain at a time. So it's interesting. Once you understand how your brain works, you can work your brain so much better. And then when you could see the people around you, you could set up your team, or, your children, you could be able to meet their needs, leaning into their personal strengths and their individual traits. And it takes also the judgment from yourself, but also judging other people, because people are always playing to what's most comfortable and aligned, with their dominant brain type.
Well, and one of the things, so do you know the term aphantasia? Has that ever come up? Yeah. So I'm one of the small percentage of people that has aphantasia. So and for the audience, that means I don't visualize. I don't see pictures, which the statistics are somewhere like 97% of people visualize, but a small sliver of us, for whatever reason, our brain didn't figure that piece out. And so because of that, I need your dolphin, like someone that can see where we're going, right? Because my brain just wouldn't naturally produce that. It's super great at doing all the actions to get there once someone's mapped that out. So I learned pretty early in my professional life that I need to pair up with a dolphin. And NeuroHacker, our leadership, right? Our founders are that for us. So, I think your framework is amazing and so important, because we tend to just think all brains are like our brain, and there's nothing that's further from the truth, right? Like, all our brains are snowflakes. So
very individual, without a doubt.
So one of the other new additions, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time on this, was a chapter where you really took up what you'd started in the original Limitless and now dedicated an entire new chapter to brain foods and nootropics. Yeah. And what I was hoping was to merge maybe, I know you do this on your website, it's a free resource, but take us through maybe your memory or one of your, memory methods with, some of your favorite brain foods.
Yeah, so we could do it real quick. We could talk about brain foods, then brain supplements, and then the nootropics, which you know so much about. You've probably forgotten more about it than most people will learn. So those are the three areas. So the foods, some of my favorite brain foods. And let's say that Greg calls you up, or I call you up and say, hey, we're going to have a Limitless brain cocktail party. While you're out, can you pick up these foods? And I can't tell you how many times I hear this. People go to buy one thing at the market and they come back with maybe a full grocery bag or 2 bags. And when they unpack it, they realize they forgot the one thing they went to the store for. But I do believe that your memory is like a muscle. It's use it or lose it. And there's no such thing maybe as a good or bad memory. Better, more accurate is there's a trained memory and an untrained memory. When people see me at events, if there's time, I'll do these memory demonstrations, try to get one in if I can, where I'll maybe memorize 30 or 40, 50 people's names in an audience as they pass around a microphone and introduce themselves. So they'll give me 100 numbers or 100 random words. And people are surprised to hear that, when I say that you could do this too, I don't do this to impress you. I do this to express to you what's possible. And I do hold to that regardless, if you're listening, regardless of your age, your background, your educational level, financial situation, gender, history, IQ, that you could do this too. We just weren't taught, right? There's no class called memory back in school. I always thought it should have been the 4th R, reading, writing, arithmetic, and retention or recall. Socrates says learning is remembering. But I find that because we weren't taught, it's kind of like going to somebody, say, focus or study or remember this. It's like going to somebody saying, play the didgeridoo or the ukulele, who's never had any training on how to do that. So I feel like there's this kind of gap in education that we want to bring out to the world and teach people how to learn, how to focus. There's no class called concentration, right? So that's what the book is really about and our podcast is about. But a simple technique is something that I use as a body list. It's taking areas that you're very familiar with, like your home, your office, your school, or the mall, or in this case, your body, and you're very familiar with it. So it creates like a filing system for you to memorize things. So let's say you want to memorize some of the brain foods. Now I want to stipulate, I'm not a nutritionist and everyone's a little bio individual, right? Some people are allergic, or have maybe can't digest certain foods. So this is the generalities. And we're going to put it on our body. So everyone, let's make this active and interactive. And you can post on social media if you remember all these 10 foods. So everyone touch the top of your head and say top. So this would be the first place. Then we'll go right down the body. Second place is your nose. So everyone touch your nose, and your verbal memory, your auditory memory is nose. So say it out loud, nose. 3 is your mouth. So third place, everyone touch your mouth and say the third place, which is mouth. 4, go to the side of your head, your ears. 4, your ears, and 5 is your throat. All right. So this is like exercising your memories. It's this kind of way of testing your memory. 6, everyone touch your shoulders. Goes right down the body, shoulders. 8 is your collarbone. So collar is 8. 7. 7 is your collar. 8 are your fingers. So everyone wiggle your fingers, and that's 8. 9 is your belly, and 10 is your bottom. All right. So it's top to bottom, literally 10 places. And what we're going to do very simply is you want to take the things you want to remember and put the first thing in the first place, the second thing in the second place. I use this to train a lot of TED speakers to memorize speeches, or people need to give us presentation without a teleprompter, or maybe you're an actor and you want to memorize lines. You could put the 10 points or 10 points to a speech on your body, right? Or in your kitchen. Going around clockwise. Imagine putting the first idea in your microwave, and the second idea on your stovetop, your third in your refrigerator. And it's just an idea of how it utilizes how your brain already kind of works. And even if you can't imagine it, because we just talked about visualization might not work for everybody, then just feel it, right? Feel that food on that part of your body and use your other senses, smell it or taste it. So feel you're running the first brain food or avocados, right? The monounsaturated fat, your brain is mostly fat. Imagine feeling what avocados on your scalp would feel like. Maybe you're putting guacamole as a scalp conditioner, and maybe even smell the avocados also as well, right? The second place is your nose, right? The second brain food are blueberries. I like to call them brain berries. So smell the blueberries in your nose. Feel maybe the blueberries are pretty like, they're from a local organic market, and maybe they're stuck in your nose, right? Feel what that feels like, smell what it, add your senses, even if you can't see it. You could say it, you could smell it, you could feel it. Third place is your mouth, right? So everyone touch their mouth, and next brain food is broccoli. So imagine broccoli, and a lot of brain benefits, whether this is sulforaphane, you could sprout broccoli also, but imagine broccoli is stuck in your teeth. Right. And nobody told you, but maybe it's a big stalk of broccoli stuck in your teeth. You make it exaggerated, you're more likely to remember it, but taste it, smell it, feel the broccoli in your teeth. The fourth place are your ears. And I'm going to add olive oil. So olive oil, feel what it would feel like to clean your ears with olive oil, or mentally process. You just focus on your ears and olive oil, or maybe you have olive earrings, something that's memorable, right? To remind you olive oil. The fifth place is your throat. And if your diet allows, eggs. So imagine instead of the choline in eggs, these acetylcholine, which is important for cognitive health, cognitive performance. Imagine an egg instead of an Adam's apple, like a hard-boiled egg maybe, or many eggs stuck in your throat, right? We're halfway there. And I think most people remember what's on their scalp and coming out of their nose, but I'll test you in a little bit. 6 are your shoulders. Everyone touch your shoulders. I'm a fan of green leafy vegetables. So just imagine shoulder pads made out of kale and spinach. Just feel what that would feel like if you felt like spinach on one side and kale on the other side. And again, everyone's bio-individual, right? Number 7 is your collar. Everyone touch your collar. And if your diet allows, again, the fatty fishes like salmon, sardines. So imagine you have wild salmon, maybe a necklace made out of salmon sushi. All right, just feel that around your neck, your collarbone. And imagine the salmon sushi is like a week old. So that really you could smell it and you could really feel it there. All right. All right. From there, on your fingertips is the eighth place. The eighth brain food I'll share is turmeric, right? The active ingredient, the curcumin, the anti-inflammatory. But imagine you have on your fingertips all this golden powder. Maybe you're making like a golden milk with almond milk and some turmeric, some pepper to help you absorb it. Very anti-inflammatory. But just imagine that turmeric as you're making it, all stuck in your nail, your finger bed, right? Your cuticles everywhere. Can't get it off, which is often the case. All right, now is your belly. Ninth brain food I'm going to share are walnuts. They're high in vitamin E, neuroprotective, kind of looks like the brain. But just imagine eating walnuts out of your belly button. Like just even physically, just you're reaching for your belly button, you're pulling out these walnuts and you're tasting the walnuts from your belly button, right? And then finally, the 10th place is your bottom. And I'm just going to add one that's kind of a fun one that I think is nutritious and delicious, which is dark chocolate. All right, dark chocolate, not milk chocolate. I'll let people come up with their own ideas of what's going on with their bottom, but dark chocolate and bottom. So the idea here is now you're back you're at the market and you didn't bring your grocery list. You have to write it in triplicate because you remember it. You're exercising your memory and you're walking down the aisles and it's like, oh, what did I need to get for this Limitless brain party that Greg mentioned? I couldn't write it down because I was driving, but I have it on my body, right? And so on the top of your head, everyone could say out loud what brain food. So on the top of your head, on your scalp, you have what?
Avocado.
Avocados. And stuck in your nose, you have the
blueberry.
The blueberry, right? Yeah, high antioxidants, very neuroprotective. Stuck in your teeth, you have another brain food, which is the
broccoli.
Broccoli.
Yeah.
And cleaning your ears with
olive oil.
The olive oil. And,
should I be saying some of these or no?
Yeah, you could say it. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone else could be saying out loud also. Instead of an Adam's apple, you have a hard-boiled, egg,
Jim.
right? So there, and then on your shoulder pads made out of the green leafy vegetables like kale and spinach. You have a necklace on your collar made up of what?
Salmon and good fish.
Salmon, yeah. And then stuck on your fingers, you have that golden powder, the turmeric, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're eating out of your belly button.
The walnuts.
All those walnuts.
Mine were in a shell. I have to crack them first. So
you have to crack them open. Even better. With the more activity, the more of your nervous system you use, the more memorable. And on your bottom, you have the dark chocolate, right? And people could probably, what I would recommend is to teach this to somebody else. Because when you teach it, you get to learn it so much better. You take advantage of something called the explanation effect. And also test yourself, like see if you can do it backwards and go from dark chocolate to walnuts to the turmeric to the wild salmon around your neck to the green leafy vegetables and so on. But when you understand how your memory works, then you can work your memory. And it takes a little more time to explain it than it does to feel it or to see it or to smell it or do it. And it's just a wonderful way. So as I mentioned, you could do this in your office and just go clockwise, or in your bedroom and just go clockwise and put like the key points to a speech or something you just read. And it's a wonderful way to help consolidate short-term memory into more long-term. So those are the same as foods. Now, if you don't get those nutrients from food, which I would personally prefer, then you could supplement, right? If you're not getting eggs in your diet, then maybe you need to supplement with maybe a choline, right? If you're not getting it from eggs or soybeans, because that could play a vital role in your health, right? It's a crucial component for acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter that supports memory and cognitive function. Maybe you're not getting the wild salmon, so maybe you're supplementing with omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, which is the structural component of the brain that plays a key role in memory and overall brain health and performance. Maybe you're not getting maybe you're not getting your B vitamins, especially B6 or a full B9, B12. So you need to supplement, with that, because that can affect, the production of brain chemicals, affect your mood and other brain functions. Maybe you're not getting magnesium in your diet and you want to supplement. It's so vital for brain health and really every physiological function for learning, memory, mood. And then it's your expertise, which is some people call nootropics, and those are for me, those nootropics or nootropics, depending on how people pronounce it. These are the substances that can enhance cognitive function, particularly executive function, memory, creativity, innovation. So, we put a lot of this online, what's in the book. If people, aren't able to get the book, there's a whole chapter on it. You can go to brainnutrition.com and it has these ingredients, a lot of human studies. Some of my kind of ones that I could highlight that are familiar with people in your community because they're very, advanced. Ashwagandha is an adaptogenic herb. It can improve mental and physical resilience. It may help reduce stress and improve cognitive function. There's a whole coffee extract I talk about in the book. This is the byproduct of the coffee plant. It's usually discarded, but it could be a strong antioxidant and have an impact on cognitive function. Phosphatidylserine is a phospholipid that's really integral to part of the brain cell membrane. It's shown to improve memory, learning, and cognitive function. L-theanine is an amino acid found in green tea, which is what I'm drinking right now. It could help promote relaxation without the drowsiness, could enhance brain function. Bacopa is an herb that's been used in Ayurvedic medicine to improve cognition and memory. Rhodiola is a Scandinavian herb. It's been shown to reduce mental fatigue, improve cognitive function. I mean, there's just so many great ones, and so much about this. I'm sure you've covered it. Some even my go-tos are like things like creatine. A lot of people use it for exercise. It's actually found in meat and fish, but if that's not part of your diet, you could supplement in it. You probably can give people, I don't know what you recommend, like 5 grams, but a number of studies have shown that creatine could help with cognitive function, especially in tasks that require short-term memory, help with, I read something recently supportive of people who are at a sleep deficit, can help with, mental energy.
Yeah, it's one of the studies on creatine was in that context, sleep deprivation, to help people perform better. And remember once, it's like, I know the most common dosing is just based off, how it's been used for, muscles, right? So you typically just see that, right? 3 to 5 grams would be the common. But I saw one study on, it was vegetarian women, I believe, and what was sufficient to put them back in kind of a positive body balance of creatine was just 1 gram a day. So, we probably, it depends on our goal. Studies tend to, default typically with the idea that more is better, but we probably even need less than the 3 to 5 grams to get some tangible benefits.
Yeah. So there's this kind of just some of the ones I'm just taking out of the book. Again, we put it as a free resource at brainnutrition.com and just linked some of the human studies. I mentioned turmeric, but the active ingredient is curcumin, so potentially that could be supportive. Lion's mane mushroom is pretty popular for its neuroprotective effects. It's been shown to stimulate the synthesis of nerve growth factor. Ginkgo biloba, blood flow. It's been used in Chinese medicine for a very long time. It could also promote good, besides the blood flow circulation, potentially protect brain from neuronal damage and so much more. But it's, I've kind of I put that in the book and put the studies in there just because it was such a big question people had about, I would love for people to go, we have programs, for focus, memory, student success program for the kids, speed reading, everything. But, people will often want to take a pill instead of go through a program. So I realized that. So we added that into the new edition of Limitless.
Well, and it's, I believe it's the fourth M, right? It's the momentum. These new pieces you added were, building off the framework. That's the core. So with that, Jim, I know you have other commitments, and I thank you so much for sharing, your time and your work with our audience today. Before we leave, is there a special place you want our audience to follow you? I know Instagram's a big channel where I follow you.
Yeah. I know we're connected. I would challenge everyone, maybe take a screenshot of wherever they're consuming this and tag us both there. And then maybe share your brain animal or share your favorite brain food. Or, again, you want to learn to teach, because when you teach it, you share it with your fans, your followers, your friends, your family, whoever's following you, you get to really own it a little bit more. So you could post your brain animal. We have if you're watching this on video, like all the different animals and AI that we had developed for you, and get your report. Or you get, again, brainnutrition.com. But the book is at limitlessbook.com. We're donating the proceeds. We built schools everywhere from Ghana, Guatemala, Kenya, for kids who had no access to education. Also Alzheimer's research for women. Women are twice as likely to experience Alzheimer's than men. And I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's when I was 7. So it really informed what I do today. My traumatic brain injury and my learning difficulties, being genetically disposed towards certain brain aging challenges. We really made it our mission. No brain left behind. And I appreciate you. I appreciate your support, our conversations that we've had, geeking out over these subjects. And I just want to remind people that, we're on this quest together to reveal and realize our fullest potential, and then I think we do what we can every single day. Always ask yourself, is this good for my brain or is it bad for my brain? Is what I'm watching or who I'm spending time with or what I'm eating or consuming or drinking or swallowing, is this good for my brain? If you're watching this on video, I'm always wearing a brain on my shirt. I'm always pointing to my brain in pictures on social media, because what you see, you take care of. You see your skin or your car, or your clothing, because you could see when it's not, where it needs to be, but we don't see the thing that takes care of us. So, love your brain, trust your brain, use your brain, and really get to know your brain.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. The podcast is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. You should not use the information on the podcast for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease, or prescribing any medication or other treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider before taking any medication or nutritional, herbal, or homeopathic supplement, and with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this or any other podcast. Reliance on the podcast is solely at your own risk. Information provided on the podcast does not create a doctor-patient relationship between you and any of the health professionals affiliated with our podcast. Information and statements regarding dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guests' qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to therein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician. This podcast is owned by Neurohacker Collective.